Welcome to The Wanderer's Compass, a Big Blend radio travel podcast featuring Joelle Machia and Ryan Slough. Welcome, everyone. It is time for another episode of Wanderer's Compass here on Big Blend Radio with Joelle Machia and Ryan Slough. And today, no, they're not calling in from Turkey again. I'm kind of bummed about that. I enjoy their international calls on these podcasts. But today we are talking about their recent trip. They literally just got home from Ireland. And this was a very important trip because Ryan got to take his 7-year-old son with him. And, you know, when we are kids and we go on our first big international trip and we're at that age where we can soak it in, we're not going to get everything, right? But it's an adventure and it's super exciting. So we're going to talk about that because they covered a lot of historic ground. As you know, they love castles, and I believe they went to 27 castles. They went to Galway, they went to Limerick, and who doesn't want to go to Limerick just for the name? They went to Cork and, of course, Dublin. I want to know if Ryan, Joelle, and Ryan's son kissed the Blarney Stone. I don't know if they did that, but we're going to find out. First off, welcome back, Joelle. How are you?
Hi, Lisa. I'm good. And how are you?
Doing good. Excited to hear about Ireland. It sounds like you had a big trip. How long were you there?
We were there for 10 days, and it was a remarkable 10 days. It was the first time we ever traveled with Ryan's 7-year-old son. So we were a little, anticipatory about, is this going to be smooth for him? Will, he be a 7-year-old at times who gets antsy? And it was beyond anything we expected. It was the most amazing of trips, and he was an absolute engaged traveler from the beginning to the end in ways we'll talk about through this podcast today, and tips I think we've learned that we're going to share with other people as well is how to make it such a remarkable experience right from the beginning to the end. And and he now is already talking about what about our next trip? Where are we going to go next? What are we going to do next? So he's very, very already wanting to see the world. He's for some reason his fascination right now is to go to Iceland. So we may do that because he's very. Again, we want to stimulate that interest. It's really exciting, and especially it means the world to Ryan because Ryan is a world traveler, and he would love his son to share in that excitement and story for himself.
I love it. Welcome back, Ryan. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How you doing?
Doing good. So this was pretty epic, right? For you and your son to experience this together. Did your son look up Ireland before you went? I know that you love research, right? And so did that, go down to your son to be part of that? Or was this just a big, wide-eyed experience?
Well, first, I want to say I expected nothing less from my son. He did, an awesome job the whole time, and I was pleasantly surprised. But yeah, we did research stuff. I do my standard research, but from time to time, as it got closer, we'd be like, "Hey, do you want to look on YouTube? Let's look up something about a castle or Ireland, or let's listen to them talk. Might understand them a little better when he actually gets there because someone has a really thick accent, and just got him to see a little couple of snippets of what we're gonna do, and just getting him excited of we're getting to go, we're getting ready to go, and it's getting closer. He just got more excited, and everything for the most part went off without a hitch. The starting got a little rough because we got there, we got on the plane, and then there was something wrong with the plane, and we sat there a long time, and then they had to change planes, so we had to taxi back, and we were supposed to land at 7 in the morning, and we ended up landing at 1 p.m. So we had a couple of things that we wanted to do that we did do, but most of that day we're like, well, we can't do that or that or that or that or that. So it was basically we went to our first destination, which was Trim Castle, because that was my first castle ever I got to see and explore. So we went to that. So now that's his as well. And Ireland was my first country.
Cool.
But first country I got to explore myself, not my official first. I've been to Canada and Afghanistan and all these other things through the army. Yeah, so we went to that first location, and he was super excited, and we had no sleep, and he just was good to go, and we just drove from there, went down all the way across to Galway, and started got settled in for our next adventure for the next day.
Awesome. That is awesome. But, I think in a way, things not going right, kind of, it's a lesson, isn't it? I mean, we know that as travelers that things are not going to go right.
Yeah, yeah, he was a little disappointed. Where he's like, "Oh, this is taking long." I'm like, "Yeah, this kind of sucks." And we're getting
Yeah.
hungry, so we got off the plane. Then we had to try and like quickly like, well, let's get something to eat real quick and eat that, and then get back on the new plane. We had to rush down to the next gate and everything. But we kind of got to talk to him and just said, "Well, hey, it's things like this happen, but hey, look, the pilot did a great job because he double checking things and making sure things were safe, and he found out that it wasn't, so he had to go get a new plane, which is great, and just saying like, hey, things happen, but guess what? We're going to be in Ireland tomorrow, so it is what it is, and we're going to make the best of it. We'll skip a couple things, but we're going to go right to other things, and that's what we did, and it worked out well.
I think it's a life lesson. I think that's what
Yeah.
travel does. It's like
Attitude.
nothing goes as planned. I mean, things do, but you always have these bumps in the road, and they always say that those detours can sometimes lead to something more beautiful, but it also teaches you resiliency. It teaches you to come up with plan A, B, C, D, which we all need in life, and to be creative and to not give up. Fantastic. Yeah.
It adds to the adventure. We've had a lot of bumps in the road in our travels over the years, and a lot of times they've turned out to make amazing experiences for us that we weren't expecting. And then sometimes it just makes you laugh and realize how lucky you are that they don't happen more often. And on this trip, we had one other incident that was funny. We were driving, and we're an hour and 20-minute drive to Cork. And next thing you know, I looked down at the GPS and I said, Ryan, why does it say we've got 2 hours toward? And he goes, what? Well, it turns out he didn't have the volume on his GPS. And so this whole time we're driving to Dublin, we're supposed to be driving to Cork. So next thing you know, we've got a 2 hour more drive. So an hour and like 20 minutes became
Which is
3+ hours.
Which is a good life lesson. Like, don't always rely on your electronics.
Yeah.
Glance at roadsides. What it's like, it's supposed to say in Cork coming up soon, and with Dublin is getting closer. I should probably been like, that doesn't seem right. But yeah, I'm just zoned out. Just like, well, we're gonna get there, check into our hotel, and whatever. Just forgot when by the time we got to or by the time we got to
Cork.
Little Limerick. We just went through. We just kept going east and didn't realize. I was like, oh well.
We do this all the time. Nancy and I got lost on a dirt road in some cemetery in the middle of Oklahoma amongst cows, and it's weird because once you get the GPS going, unless the signal goes, she's like, GPS is gone. I'm like, oh, here we go. And you download those maps, y'all. But then when you try to find something new and you realize you really messed up, and it's hard to get back because sometimes it doesn't always work. But I think it is those things that,
we laughed a lot about that.
You've got to look at the map.
Inconvenient, but it wasn't the end of the world. Just had a late dinner.
You can't. Yeah, you can't. You have to still look at the map. And I think GPS we get so reliant on it that we forget where we're going and where's east, where's west. Just listen to the voice. Now, does the voice change when you go to Ireland? Does the GPS voice change to like a Irish person?
Tried to figure out how to do that, but
I thought you could change that. I could not figure that out. I was like, I
figure
love to do that. I couldn't figure that out, so I'll have to Google it.
I think we should do that all the time.
The first thing we did, our first full day, we started something with what we thought was pretty epic, as we drove to the Cliffs of Moher. And the Cliffs of Moher is amazing. This is our second time there, but we really wanted Ryan's son to see it. And we were lucky because Cliffs of Moher are famous for the rain, the bad weather, the wind. And the last time we were there, we had a decent weather, more so than usual. But when we got there, we got into the parking lot, and the lady said, oh, you're really lucky because it was a beautiful day. And she said 3 days ago, people came all the way out here, and it's a long drive. And it was so foggy, we couldn't even let them in. They had to send them away. So from the 3 days before would have been a disaster. And here we are, beautiful
Perfect
skies.
weather.
Perfect weather, and even the wind was low and the temperature was great. And that was such a strong way to start this trip because there's something so unique and majestic about the Cliffs of Moher, the natural beauty and so forth. So that was how we started this trip, officially our first full day. And it was just seemed to be, in most cases, perfection after that. And so Galway, we really enjoyed it. We were tired that first day, so we didn't really get to enjoy the city as much. But the downtown was bustling. It's a city of lots of young people. There's a wonderful seaside promenade, lots of pubs, lots of activity, lots of music you would hear coming from the pubs. It just was a really cool city to spend time in. The Galway Cathedral, though it's a younger cathedral, it's absolutely gorgeous. And we came across an impromptu, I don't know, there's a group of people sitting in the pews, wasn't formal, and they just started singing. And it was stunning and it was beautiful, and it just echoed through this beautiful, massive cathedral. Stunning. Even Ryan's son was just actually, captivated by it. And after that, we did something super cool, because one thing we had prepared him for was, seeing some of these river dances, Gaelic music. And for the months before, he became quite enamored with Irish music. He would ask Ryan frequently, please put on another Irish song, another way to prep him and make excited for the trip. So we went to a show called Trad on the Prom, which is a combination of Irish music playing some stunning instruments, as well as river dance with some of the top performers in the world who had obviously done a lot of the big shows. That was magnificent. 2 hours of absolutely captivating performance that he was absolutely entranced in. So that was a really strong first 2 days to have all these exciting experiences and really go into it, but also have all three of us just totally engaged and excited. So, and the weather was actually almost the whole trip was gorgeous.
Well, that is fantastic. It is, but that's amazing. That's amazing. And I think, I do want to touch on this. And Ryan, maybe you want to comment on this, because, you were talking about getting food and everything. And before we get to Limerick, I wanted to ask this, because here's all these experiences, but now you're eating different food. And so what was the food like in general in Ireland, Ryan? But how was your son about eating something completely new?
Well, he always had a little bit of an issue with eating, being picky. So one of the reasons why we wanted Ireland to be his first place to go is because it's just easier for him. He can understand people as well. But the food isn't crazy. You have bangers and mash and different meat things and potato things. Yeah,
yeah.
and so it's pretty easily palatable food, for the mostly. But you have other restaurants you can go to. They have other country themed restaurants, like any other place, but also a lot of seafood. So, he did really well, and obviously we try to keep snacks available at all times and other things. But I mean, by the end of it, he loves the brown bread. Some of the places we have are amazing. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but we need to find that here and make it or buy it. He liked by near the end. Where was that place?
In Cork, or
Can't remember, but we ate. He ate mussels. Oh, that was one of our last places.
Yeah,
And
and
and,
Dublin.
and he ate some mussels, and he's like, "Oh, these are good." I'm like, "He's eating mussels right now." I mean, X amount of months ago, I could barely get him to eat anything besides chicken nuggets and fries and things.
this is fantastic.
And I'm like, okay, so that's a thing now. So
Yeah.
that was one of the big reasons why we did it, and picked Ireland, and it worked out well. He did great. He would even try things. I really thought he would like the blood pudding and some other things, but he didn't really like it. But he did try it. He tried a couple different things that we're like, hey, we'll try it. And he's like, okay, and he was willing to try things, and for most part, most everything he tried, he liked. He ate, and besides the black and white puddings, he didn't.
That's a little hard for, I don't care what age. Okay. Like it's like haggis. You have to
I don't
build
know.
up
I
to it.
love haggis. I love black. I like the puddings too, but I think maybe they're a little different than in Scotland. Because at first I was like, this isn't really that great as I remember it. But I think in Scotland maybe they make it a little more moist and like a little different, a little softer. And these were a little drier and smaller pieces. So maybe it's just a little different. I was remembering the Scottish version a little bit more, but I personally like it though. So
He would ask us. He would ask
Yeah.
us frequently, "Can I try what's on your plate?" Because I've always had, as his nana, I have this rule that I've always had my whole life, is that you have to try. If you don't like it, you don't have to eat it, but at least try it. And he's really very open to that. And it got to the point that we were having salmon or some other things, and we didn't offer it. And he's like, "Well, don't I get to try it?" And it just this sense of adventure of it, and you don't have to like it. And if you don't like it, you don't have to eat it.
Instilled that
Resonates.
with. It sounds like you guys instilled this idea of like adventure and let's do what we can while we're there and really experience it. So it's kind of like this, it's an adventure for a kid. It's like, all right, like we're going to do something new. And it's something he can go back to his friends and say, I ate this. I did this. Even if he didn't like it, I still did it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a one up on things in life. You know, when he goes back to school and hangs with his buddies, it's going to be like, have you done this?
Exactly.
I think there's a little bit of that at that age, right? I don't know. It's just kind of a, you know, I did it. Have you tried this? It'll come out somewhere in life, you know, but that sense of adventure is so cool, especially with food, because some of it things. But I want to ask you, Joelle, because I know you like those paprika chips that they're not chips now, crisp chips.
Crisps.
And then we are now. He's like, he's like, he'll talk about when he's for his shoes. He's like, oh, I gotta get my runners, or oh, can I have some crisps and other things?
Runners.
He
See, we
loves
call them tackies. We call them tackies. And once in a while, if I talk to a friend in a different country, it's like, that's why I get time zones messed up. Because like, if you guys are coming on a show and I've met you when we're in Eastern time, we're either Pacific or Eastern, and I forget because that's how I know you. And I've been on both zones. So it's so weird. Like you kind of go into that kind of weird, like, it's weird, but like we call things different names. Like you say runners, and I'm like, oh yeah, they do that, but we used to call them tackies. So that's cool that he's picked it up. But I want to know, Joelle, did you like the crisps in Ireland? Did you try something new? I know you
something. Yes. So one of the people we actually spent time with told us we absolutely have to try their Tayto chips, Tayto, I believe. TOS. And of course, when we had a chance, we did. And they're crisp, but they are really good. They seem even thinner than like Lay's, and they have different flavors with like bacon and cheddar and
bacon and cheddar.
Yeah, and then it was salt and vinegar, and he really liked them. And actually, when we left at the airport, you could buy a 6-pack of them. So we bought a 6-pack as we were leaving the country at the. I don't know that they're thinner, right? I mean, how would you describe them?
Like, I mean, they're basic kind of regular potato chips. Maybe they're just slightly thinner. I don't know. I guess it's just like their kind of version of their name brand sort of.
Did they have fruit chutney?
Lay's. They have potatoes.
Do you have fruit chutney? I'm craving fruit chutney. Oh,
yes, yeah.
Oh, I would do anything for a fruit chutney. Like bag of fruit chutney. I need to go to an international market soon. You guys are dangerous on show. When fruit chutney, because it's the sweet, the salt, and the spice, and that is the perfect anything. Is those three things being together, So.
And to your question about paprika chips, no, they did not have them.
I don't think they would, but you never know, right? You never know. But I know that you like, crisps or chips as you travel. So I had to ask about that. But it was interesting about the food because, Ireland, we haven't been to Ireland. And, I just always think that yes, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, England are all kind of connected, Isle of Man, all of that. But it is a little different where you're going. I mean, I don't know if they have Cornish pasties and steak and they have, what is it? Steak and kidney pies? Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know about those.
I think that's more English. I don't think we saw that. That's more English. I mean, they definitely, the Irish do, but the Guinness stew or whatever ones, that's huge. But a lot of potatoes, a lot of different kinds of potatoes, versions of potatoes, but they have vegetables. They have lots of seafood. They love their seafood.
I didn't know that. Yeah, Dublin. I mean, you think about that, cockles and mussels alive. Like I forgot about that. That's a normal thing for Ireland or Dublin, I think. So did you drink Guinness? Come on, Ryan. Last time we talked, you were drinking, whiskey in Edinburgh.
I had my correct share of pints.
Your correct share? This is fantastic. I'm going to use that from now on. I had my correct share.
Well, yeah, we had a few Guinnesses and Murphy's. I like Murphy's a little better. It's a little sweeter. Like it has a little more sweet note to it. But then they also a new one that I've never had, which was the
Kilkenny was
Kilkenny, but that's more like of a light brown stout, which is I've never had before. It's like kind of like an amber whatever stout. So that was different. And then the other one,
Beamish. Was it Beamish?
Beamish. I've never had that one before, and that one's pretty good. I think that one's kind of like a middle ground between
Beamish,
Murphy's and Guinness. So all quite tasty.
Listen, Guinness, they say that if you don't have food, you could live off of a Guinness. It has all the nutrients and all the sources of minerals that you need to live for 30
The
days.
Irish are still around, so I mean.
Yeah, I mean, even through the potato famine, I'm still here. Yeah, but I was gonna go say,
Well, we got to go to one of our three food groups now.
well, yeah,
Guinness.
Guinness is fine. Well, what about so everyone here is drinking Jameson's, right? So what about the whiskey side? Was Jameson's still the top thing, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, well, it's actually we went to while we were in Dublin, which was our last stop. We did the Jameson tour and the distillery there, which was really cool, and it was a great factoids and parts of history because Jameson basically saved Irish whiskey because they were, the oldest and like most well known, and then there was basically what was the potato famine and then the Civil War, and then
Oh,
there was
that's right. Yeah.
Prohibition in America, and all this stuff like hitting at once, and they went from I've heard what they said like a few hundred or whatever distilleries throughout the country to I think there was only three left, and Jameson was one of them, and so they to better ensure that they survived, they co-opt with the other two, which
one was Cork and the other one was Powers.
Powers, and they basically made like a Irish Whiskey Alliance sort of thing, and then now I think they're up to like 7 brands now, where it's like these are like staples, like a protected almost type of thing. But I mean, Irish whiskey, I mean, you see, I mean, there's so many out there now. I mean, there's Teeling and Tillermerdue and Slane and all these. I mean, there's so many out there now, but they were like the originators and the people that helped save an entire economy section of Ireland's economy because of what they did. So that was pretty cool,
Wow.
fun fact, or important fact, really, because it's like it's like oh it's just whiskey or whatever. I mean, the whole
It's it.
entire industry was almost gone. It was just them and two others. So I think that's a pretty cool thing to learn, and it's like that's why we like going to these certain things, just I like whiskey and I go there, but then I learned something pretty incredible out of that, and I got to try tasty things.
And it goes with, you did the whole class, in Scottish whiskey when you were in Scotch
Yeah,
whiskey when you were in Edinburgh. So this is like a different, and it does taste completely different to me.
yeah,
It's like, it's night and day.
yeah. I mean, I
It's
do.
like different,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
mean, I prefer bourbon mostly,
Hmm.
and then Scotch whiskeys, and then Irish whiskeys. I got into whiskey because of Irish whiskeys because they are lighter and made differently. And I think one of the reasons why is because they wanted to make their own kind of like version. Like they didn't want to be like, oh, I'm basically take Scotland's thing. So I think that was one of the reasons why they did that. Besides one trying to make their own sort of like brand, but also I think because they maybe found it too harsh. They didn't like the peated stuff and the little smoky stuff as much, But yeah, it's. I mean, yeah, if you were to put them all side by side, they'd be you would have completely different flavors,
Mm.
and notes. So
Well, did you have Irish whiskey? I mean, not Irish, Irish coffees. I love it. You did?
They have really good coffee. We were a little
Really?
worried though because we had such good coffee in Turkey recently. We were like, oh, maybe we won't. It was good. I mean, we had
Oh,
some
wow.
delicious lattes and cappuccinos, rich, foamy. I was surprised. We actually enjoyed our coffees a lot while we were there. So that was nice because
Mm.
I don't remember that coffee being that
I
good.
always thought it would
yeah,
be tea, more tea than coffee. So that's interesting, other than the Irish coffee. I always thought that was kind of like a end of night, like a nightcap. That's how I always
Yeah,
look at
you remember
them. They just say coffee because it's
yeah,
like they don't
they're
have to
like,
say it's Irish. Like when you're in Ireland,
or they're just like, hey man, we're not alcoholics, guys. Don't believe all the rumors.
really?
Right? We're
Yeah, connoisseur. It's like just like the Australians and the South Africans, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so is there a pub at every corner, just like in England, or no?
like the song says. Yes, there is.
Several.
What about ciders? Because I know in England, cider was a big deal. And we also had slow.
There's a few ciders that are around. I never write down the names 'cause I never see it in the States really though. But there's one or two that I got one while I was at that dancing show, and I got a different one later. But they're there's like one or two brands that you normally will see that's like kind of like maybe it's like their Guinness. But for cider, you see it almost everywhere. You'll probably have that at least one cider, and it'll be that one.
So did you let your son smell the whiskey and like do the face? Like,
He
you know what I mean?
he did. He had the whole group laughing many times in the tasting and stuff. He's like, "Am I going to get to taste this?" And everyone's just like,
Yeah.
"No."
But smell, I mean, because it does. I remember going through the whiskey things in Scotland as a kid, and I just was like, this is
No,
awful,
he did, yeah, he smelled it. He's like, "Oh, that one smells good." And he's like, "That one smells
Oh.
gross." And this one's, the different aromas of like what they're trying to tell you it is and everything, and so.
Oh, well, but this is interesting because like as a kid, you haven't like no filters. You know what I mean? We have, in our lives, we have no filters, then we gain filters, and then we realize it's like, yeah, how many filters do we need? And then we start to lose the filters. You know what I mean? We do this and as we, age. And as kids, it's so funny because they're so honest. What was that like? Joelle, I want to go to you, Joelle. Here's Nana here. The filters of how to handle that with kids. I mean, because I think everybody accepts kids being straight up, right? But how to handle that part where gross, like, okay, that's funny, but like, don't say that next time. You know what I mean?
Paulie's a very intuitive young child, and so
Mm-hmm.
when he's sensitive to the people around him and that. So, I mean, when he did it with a smile and says, because it's a big group. We were in the tasting room learning about the history,
Making everyone
we were all
laugh.
standing, and he was the only child. And he got his glass of water, and he would say things that had literally the whole room of 30, 40 people just laughing
Oh,
because
that's
but
cool.
it wasn't. He did it more like, oh, and then that one's good, the smell. He was. This happened a lot on the trip because this is a culture there that welcomes children.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, every place we went had some kind of special kids activity. We would be given a booklet or given a
Oh, wow.
tablet, and everywhere, a custom house. Everywhere we went has something for him where it gave him uniquely engaged. But there's really a welcome there. And like when we were at multiple places, they would purposely engage him, ask him about things, what he thought. They'd ask his name, and he loved it. And he became part of the process, which I think you don't see a lot of part in the world. In Ireland, they love their children for sure. There's a lot of children. These are big families, and he actually played on playgrounds with some local kids and really seemed to enjoy it. We didn't really. It was spontaneous, but he was always polite and respectful. And if he did say things, it was just not meant to. It was just meant like, "Oh," and people laughed because, of course, you don't have to like everything you smell,
Mm.
whatever. But he
Oh,
was always polite, and we were very proud of him
that's
about
awesome.
that because very
So
sensitive.
cool. And the fact that you went to playgrounds and you played with other kids
Yeah,
too. I mean, did he learn about cricket and football?
he did talk.
Soccer. Sorry, soccer over here, football over there. Did he do any of that? Did he get in, see any of that kind of different sport while you were there?
No, we didn't get into any of that when we were there, because we were just out and about doing
Yeah.
things, and we never happened to stumble upon anybody at a park or anything.
It's interesting to me, like how everything's changed on how, sports changes things. I'm amazed that the Cup is coming to America.
Yes, yes,
This is like I mean, growing up, that's like the 4th of July, like if not more, like as a kid,
yeah.
or not just a kid, like adult, like the World Cup is massive. And so now that it's coming to the States, I'm like, really? And I have to give a shout out to the women who played soccer in the US because, we've been playing soccer here for since the 1800s, but it was really the women who did it, who
Yeah.
started kicking butt with soccer or football, as I call it from living overseas. But it's like exciting to see this unity through sport. And I think that's something to think about as we travel of how like the Olympics unites people and cultures and it's a global cool thing to do. But let's get back on your I had to do a foodie and a food and booze detour, but this is cool. So you were in Galway, so now Limerick. So Limerick, I mean, I've always wanted to go there, and I mean it just for the name because it sounds fun.
Beautiful name.
So, yeah. So, is Limerick like a big city? Tell us a little bit about it. And did you see any ferries? Because I've heard ferries are there.
Yes, one thing and a lot of the places we stopped, a lot of the castles we stopped, and ferries is a big thing there. And especially from the children perspective, as we went to castles, they would be given maybe something that he would be searching for ferries, or there'd be fairy tales as we walked through the forest. So fairies is a message that was frequently not only just for kids, but also for adults, because fairies are a huge part of their history and their culture and
They're real.
their legends.
But they're real. No, they're
Yeah,
not legends.
yeah.
They're real.
And it was really, fun to hear the different stories, and there's a lot of history to those stories, very old
Mm.
history that ties to these fairies. So Limerick is just there's something in it. It's not a big tourist destination yet, which is interesting because it's an absolutely lovely city, probably our favorite of the three smaller cities we went to. I mean, this just has so much history in. You've got the river coming right, Shannon coming right through the middle of it. It's got a cool downtown. It's got some wonderful old. It's got St. John's Castle. It's got the beautiful St. Mary's Cathedral, the Treaty Rock. So much happened of Irish history and the Irish pain happened in Limerick. Oliver Cromwell did obviously an enormous amount of damage in history there. The St. Mary's Cathedral, which goes back, I think, to the 11th century or it could be 14th, one of the two. He houses horses in there. He took that stunning cathedral and made it a horse stable. There's a lot of pain when what we did that we were lucky. We stayed at the absolutely gorgeous Savoy Hotel in downtown. Perfect location, beautiful setting. We actually had afternoon tea there, which is sort of like your similar to a high tea in England, and it was absolutely magnificent. And actually, Ryan's son got his own tower of treats. He was just floored.
Oh.
And at the end, they even gave him a little Savoy stuffed animal, which he was so excited to get. So that was cool. Beautiful hotel, centrally located. They hooked us up with a local historian. His name is Dahi, and he's getting his PhD later this year. And he took us around for 6 hours. And he took us to the Hunt Museum, which was wonderful. The cathedral took us through English Town, Irish Town, New Town, because there's really historically three towns in the town of Limerick. Took us along the river, the bridges, St. John's Castle, Treaty Rock. He sung to us in Gaelic. He told us stories. And we were a little worried that would be a long time for Ryan's son. And in the end, we've asked him what was his favorite part of the 10 days, and it was the 6 hour tour with Dahi. And what we learned about Irish history, and it's a very turbulent, difficult history, of course, about the potato famine, which at the time the famine hit, there were 9 million people living in Ireland, approximately. And now we're at 5.56. So it's never recovered. It was devastating, and it's still something you're trying to. So we learned a lot about things. As much as I've been to Ireland, we've been to Ireland. There was a lot more to learn because when you delve into that history with someone who's so knowledgeable, it really added an amazing element to the trip. And the fact that Ryan's son said it was his favorite part, the 6 hour historian tour, tells you a lot about storytelling, the ability to engage a child, but giving him we sometimes under expect what our kids are capable of absorbing, and he absorbed it and loved it. And I could not recommend that whole thing enough. But the Hunt Museum, again, all those things. And there was a Ferris wheel. When we first got there, we got there late, and there was a Ferris wheel. So we walked to it, and we just did one ride. Again, dealing with the kid, keeping the kid engaged in things that are unique. But it gave us an overall view of all Limerick. It was right on the water. The castle was there. Everything. The key thing. It was actually really fun. I would just say grown-ups should do it because you get yourself this view of all of Limerick. So Limerick was amazing. I wish we had more time there.
It was a nice little town. It feels like a perfect size where if you only had a day, you could see pretty much most of the main points all in just one day. I mean, that's basically kind of what we did. We only had, the little time there. We had one full day, and then we had a little bit of these other days. And we were able to just walk, all the way up and down and around. We walked probably what 7 miles that day.
Oh yeah,
with my little boy, and it was fine because it's relatively flat. It's right on the river, and it is real easy to get around. And
restaurants.
And it was awesome. I think it was one of those perfect sized little towns where it's got a lot of cool little things and a little package there, and you can see it, and you leave and think, oh man, I missed this, I missed that, but you get to have a good sense of it. Other towns you go to, and you might only saw one neighborhood of that city or whatever in that time. So, it was nice to be able to kind of get a pretty well-rounded view of what that city was. And
I think it's amazing that you had this historian take you around for so long and, have your son engaged with that because, it's hard to sell history, unless you have a good storyteller or something immersive that gets them engaged, and from some of the photos I saw on your social media, it looked like you were somewhere in Ireland, and I'm not in front of it right now, but it looked like you, Ryan, and you and your son were building something like bricks or something. And that looks, but that's the kind of immersive thing. And he was writing something, so it looked like he got engaged in activities, which helps you get that tangibility of history.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was like almost every big place we went to, like castle wise, or some of the museums, they was like, "Oh, do you want an activity?" And some were, you had to find these ferry doors, like on a trail or somewhere. Others had, oh, it was a important building. Each panel of information in the different rooms would have a Mason symbol on it. Like the old how they signed their signatures.
Oh, wow.
So and he would have to find those and then check them off, and then he could like draw them and try to draw them himself, and then find these different things. Or there was one castle we went to, or a fort that was in what was that, in Cork, and it had these like little lizards that they hid everywhere, like little pictures of a lizard somewhere, and you had to find them all. And at the end, if he X amount he finds, he gets some stickers, and so it was really nice. He had something to do to make him feel more like he was involved, rather than just like us taking pictures and walking around. And he sees cool things, but it gave him a little more focus on looking at things and doing stuff and being there. And it was really nice.
Oh, so this is a weird question because you brought up lizards. I have to bring this because people wouldn't think of lizards in Ireland, right? So I have to ask this because did you really? That's cool. That's super cool. I wanted to ask this because when St. Patrick's Day happens here, and you guys have been to Ireland a few times, everyone thinks of St. Paddy's Day and green beer, and there's this whole legend about St. Patrick and the religious side of things, but then he banished snakes or something. There was something to do with snakes in St. Pat.
He drove the snakes out of the island, inhabitable for people.
So as you travel Ireland in general, have you seen things about St. Pat and snakes? I mean,
we didn't really. I don't think we really focused on or saw anything about the snakes and stuff like that. Although we did go to Rock Cashel, near one of our last stops, heading from Cork to Dublin, which is a beautiful old. I guess it was sort of an old fortified abbey, real religious site. And I was so glad to go, because the first time I went to Ireland, we went there, and it was like, probably 50% of it was in scaffolding. And that was 11 years ago. And then now we got to show up, and we had, overcast weather, but it was nice. It wasn't raining. It was just really great weather, and just perfect. No scaffolding, nothing, and it wasn't real crowded.
You could get your photos. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome to be able to just walk around and see it and appreciate it. So, I guess St. Patrick, supposedly walked the grounds of that area, or that location and things. But there's many sites, I'm sure, that you could find with him involved besides that one now.
We did the St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin the last day. That of course was an enormous amount of reference about how he took the water to, baptize. That's how water became, there's a lot tied to him. You hear him mentioned throughout your times there. They don't refer to St. Patrick's Day as much as St. Patrick, because he's quite
he's a saint
of Irish history.
Yeah, it's not important. The day. The day is a whole different thing. Exactly. And I think it's so interesting how holidays become something and how it changes. It's like how we have Cinco de Mayo in the States, but Mexico, only one place really celebrates it, and it's in a different way. And here it's an excuse to drink an extra margarita, which is okay with me. But you know what I mean? It becomes this different, especially in Southern California and Arizona. But it's just so kind of interesting how I think we all just want an excuse for a good party, and that's fine with me, but I always think it's important to go back to the true stories or the myths and legends, though I still believe fairies are real. I do. I know they're myths and legends, but why not? Why not?
Why not?
Why not? That's what travel does. It makes you think beyond what our brains, we haven't used all our brains yet, right? As humans, as a species. And I think
we will.
Well, I mean, the way the world is going right now, I don't know, man. There's some lack of brains going on, but for travelers, I think we're pushing our brain to go beyond what limited beliefs, because
Yes.
that's what travel is. And that's what's so cool about taking your son. I mean, I do really appreciate traveling as a kid, because I would never have really gotten history properly, I don't think, if it wasn't for travel and going to castles. And we've talked about that on shows with you before, but travel makes it alive. And the fact that you did this whole day basically with a historian and your son was engaged, it's going to last with him for the rest of his life in some way, and I think this is, the fact that he wants to go to Iceland, he'll get dark bread there too. That's made out of the geothermal stuff, right? I think. So that's cool. That's cool. But okay, I'm going to get us back to now Cork,
Yes.
because who doesn't want to go to Cork just for that name too? I do.
It's an awesome city as well. A lot of history there. Very different, completely different feel than Galway, I feel, is and Limerick. But definitely there's an older city. It's you definitely get the sense of the age more, which is, I don't know. It's hard to really say the difference, but there's a different feel to it. We stayed at actually another really cool hotel called the River Lee Hotel. It was right on the river as well, on the River Lee, but it was a great location right near the downtown area. But the cool part on the way to Cork, and this is one of the highlights of our trip as well, is when our last visit there 11 years ago, we stopped by Bunratty Castle and Folk Park. Really cool, beautiful castle, restored to its original look inside. So you walk through those rooms like it was back in those ancient days. And we went there because when we were there, we heard about this medieval feast. That's a big deal there, very popular.
Ooh,
Ryan goes,
cool.
well, if I ever have a kid, I'm going to come back and take my kid there. Well, we timed everything that we could be there. They were a couple of performances per week, and that we did the park first and the castle, and then we went back to do the feast. And oh my gosh, it was so much fun in costume, eating with our hands. And Ryan could talk more. His son
cool.
absolutely was amazed. The harpist, the people informed, the jokes. He got to go down to the jail where they put people, and it was just the dungeon. Yeah, it was amazing, and it was just such a cool kid thing. But let me tell you, I think wasn't he, Ryan, like the only young kid in the whole room?
Yeah, it was like him and maybe two others. It was fun because they have all these, like 15th century and other, things, older buildings. They have like a schoolhouse and they have a bar and fisherman's house and all this stuff in the folk park. And then the castle, like you said, it's all whitewashed and nice inside, and every room is got a collection of different, period of like, I can't remember how old they are, 1400, 1500, different periods of clothing and furniture and everything, which is, really awesome. But then you get this, feast right after the park closes, so we got to see most of the stuff and we kind of rushed through, and then walked up there and they start you off with like a little introduction. There's different people. They talk to you, and they hand everybody a little thing of mead that they make there, which I
Ooh.
currently have a bottle here. It's one of the only Bunratty mead. It's one of the only like meads you can find like anywhere. Like middle of nowhere that I live here in PA, I can go to almost any liquor store, wine store, and I'll find a bottle of that, but I won't find any others. So it's good. We got they do that. Then they bring you in the great hall, and then they bring you down to the other hall after you're done with introductions, and then they give you a four-course meal and the whole spiel when they have like they sing. There's like a couple of it's like what 8 people, 9 people that like they'll sing. There's a woman that plays the harp the whole time, and then and then they go do these spectacles of each tasting the food and going through each meal, part of the meal. So it was really really fun. Final day there in Galway area until before we made our way down to the unfortunate long way around that I did of the 2-hour drive out of the way down to Cork.
But I mean, we think we have medieval times here, like in Vegas and stuff,
Oh
right?
man, I've never been, and I don't think I want to go.
I know.
Feel like this is crap.
I know
This
exactly,
is like
because it's
this
like
is like Wish.
I
This is
know.
not this is like, was that Venmo or Temu or whatever? It's like this is crap. It's like
The Temu thing. The Temu thing. I saw a meme on Facebook where they had someone camping and they're lying on the shore of a river, and it's like a rocky river, bed with all the big, pebbles and stuff, and they're lying there, and their head is in a not a sleep, a little mini tent, and they were purchased through Temu. That's the thing. It's like this weird, it is weird how we do that, but it's in a way, it's in the spirit of, but I think when the real deal is like, that's epic. It's just like you can stay in castles. And I mean, again, you guys went to 27 castles in 10 days, and 14 of them were new castles on this adventure? That's huge. That's a lot.
So when we were in Cork, we did two things. We did side trips because we spent 3 nights in Cork. We went to Kinsale, which is one of the most charming and beautiful seaside towns in Ireland. Absolutely colorful, bright, really cool downtown. Small village, like bigger than a village, but not a city. Really wonderful. There was a gorgeous Charles Fort that we saw there that we actually did a Warrior Wednesday on yesterday, which was absolutely. Ryan and his son were completely engaged. Actually, I didn't see him for like a half an hour because they went off to explore things. So that was if anyone goes to that part of Ireland, absolutely make time for Kinsale. And then the other was the Cove. I don't know if you know the town of Cove. It's spelled actually Cobh. And that is another cool seaside town, but it's very historic because that was actually the last stop of the Titanic before it obviously met its disaster a couple of days later. So we did the cathedral there. We walked through the beautiful, colorful town. We had breakfast there. It was really cool. But we also did the Titanic Museum where they set you up as 120 people, I believe, board it from that town on the Titanic. And so you literally go through where they stood or before they board it. And you were given a boarding card, and each was a real person. And you got to follow sort of through the story. And at the end, very last room, you find out if you've survived or not. And
my gosh.
We all survived, which was actually surprising because many of them did not. And it was just a really cool connection. And interestingly, Ryan's son knew all about the Titanic, so he was actually engaged as well. So that was with the story.
I didn't think it was real until then. He's like, it was real. He's like, yes, this happened. But he's like, I thought it was
beyond the movie.
I'm like, well, it is a movie too.
Yeah, but this is, it is incredible. And now they're finding out new stuff about, I think Nancy was telling me the other day that there was a kitchen fire or something that made the Titanic go down. Not just anyway, I don't know. But this is an example of an immersive experience where it's living history. I was talking about that with museum people the other day, that you cannot just be a museum with photos on the wall and static. For kids, now with how we have technology has pushed us to want more out of storytelling, right? And so a museum, and I think it's for adults too. I don't think we should just lay it all on the kids' shoulders of getting bored on stuff. We need to tell the stories. It can't just be this year this happened. Who cares? Unless it's a story. I want to hear about the people. And that is one of the best examples I've heard of actually connecting to the person.
Yeah, it was neat to be able to, kind of go through that and give a little, so it made you want to learn a little more because you're kind of invested now. You're like, I don't know, did this person make it? Versus just you see, oh, look, this many people made it, this people didn't, and then you just move on. So it's kind of nice to keep your focus a little more on it.
It was really special. I'm really glad we did it. There was a place called Spike Island we wanted to go to, where regretfully the time commitment was like 3 to 4 hours, so we weren't able to do that. But that's something if we get back, we'll try to do because it's an old fort/prison that's supposed to be super cool. And kids love it, but it's a minimum 3 hours. I mean, once you get the boat there, they will not let you go back on an earlier boat, so you have to stay. And we just couldn't give up that much of our days.
But we did go to Charles Fort, which is a huge, awesome, fort that was in Kinsale after that, and that was really, really cool. It felt like being in a castle. It was gigantic and beautiful. It was mostly in disarray and ruins, but just walking the grounds and seeing that, the ramparts were all intact, and just walking through it, it was really beautiful. So and you get a nice distant view of Kinsale there in the harbor and everything. So that was a good consolation. I think it was actually probably better. I think we got to walk around that.
So it sounds like Cork is like a good hub to explore other areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Now, Dublin, did you kiss the Blarney Stone?
Well, the Blarney Stone is actually closer to Cork, and we had done that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Through late night, and then we had everything.
What was it like, when you think about this, when you see him learn and get this adventure and study, do you think, what's it like as a parent to look and like, has it, for both of you actually, as travelers, did it change you traveling with a kid in how you looked at things? Because sometimes there's solo travel, there's travel with someone you always know, like the two of you know each other well, you have a rhythm of how you travel, you know each other, right? You've been doing this for a while. And then you have someone here, like, it's obviously he's not new to the mix, right? But it's like a whole different experience. Like, what was that like with Ryan? I'll start with you and then go to Joelle on this. What was it like for you traveling with him and seeing what he liked? And did you learn something?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think in a way he got me to appreciate things a little more sometimes, and to slow down a little bit because I can't walk as fast. So because he'd be like, slow down. I'm like, but just watching him take things in was nice, and and he so many times, I want the camera. And no, I'm handing him this really expensive camera, and he's taking pictures of things and noticing things, and like, oh, he zooms into the stained glass and see because he wants a picture that like I did, because it's real colorful and beautiful. And so noticing just how he was absorbing things and wasn't just staring like, oh, that's cool, moving on. Like he was getting mad because the one museum we did the tour with the Dahi, we couldn't obviously spend 12 hours of the day there with everybody, and so we were walking through and I was seeing these beautiful things, but he's like, why do we don't get to stay so long? I want to see this, I want to see that. And like he wanted to look at things longer, and he wanted to see the
Wow.
details of things and stuff. So it was nice to see him appreciate that, and to realize, like, oh yeah, maybe I should slow down and take it in a little more, and that was one thing we tried to do is balance the driving to how many things we could fit in a day to whatever, with him, because normally for us, we would always see this thing move on, see this thing move on, and cram a lot in. And then as we've progressed over the years, we've slowed down a little more and slowed down a little more, or, try to stick. So this one, we, try to go see a couple things, and then we made sure to be in a town 2, 3 nights, and then we move on. And that way we wouldn't have to keep staying in the car all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
But so it made us plan things a little better, and maybe helped us slow down and focus on things a little
And
more.
eat.
So
Because
yeah,
we tend to forget.
He caught things with his eye that we weren't seeing. We would go down the road. We were at one place, it was during our drive to Dublin, and he all of a sudden said, look, stop. I think it's a ruin. And so we literally pulled off the side of the road, and he was right. It was a ruin. And then
Wow.
they went to explore it. But it was, I mean, he, again, his enthusiasm, instead of playing on an iPad, he was busy looking at the world around him, and then I think there's another one over
So
there.
he was like on a safari.
Absolutely. He's totally engaged. And
yeah,
I think,
he loved it. He was
yeah.
mad that we couldn't stop at everything. I'm like, man, that'd be because it would have been like a normal trip that we would have done, where it's like, oh, stop, oh, we see something else, stop, even though it wasn't on the list. Next thing you know, it's like sundown, and we've seen double what we were supposed to see that day because we just keep stopping, and then it's like we're missing meals and everything else. We're just like, okay, let's see that, let's see that.
Lisa, your
Yeah.
comment about seeing things through different eyes, and I think that very much was the case, because when you try to gear it to him to understand history and what he's seeing, you're learning in the process. And this is sort of how Ryan and I got started when we traveled the first time 11 years ago together. I've been traveling my whole life, but seeing his excitement through his eyes at Trim Castle, at his first all these new countries, you see it now through their eyes instead of your own. And in the process, it opens so much up that you had sort of lost track of along the way. And so definitely felt that way with his son there, and felt that way 11 years ago when Ryan started this process.
Oh, that's
When
cool.
when we look at through their eyes, not just our own, we definitely see new things that maybe we had missed or seen, and we learn so much more and appreciate so much more. So I think it's really important to, that's why, engage that child, get them part of this history. Why do you think is this way? Let them say what they think. But I think very importantly, what we would do is say, hey, the next day, what should we do first? One night we were driving to Cork that very late night. We went by the St. Fin's Barry's Cathedral, gorgeous, massive, I think 11th century cathedral. And he immediately looked up and said, let's make that the first thing we do tomorrow. I mean, without us even drawing attention to it. And that's what we did. So he had ownership to what
Coincidentally,
we
it
were
was
doing.
actually, but we didn't really know. It was just like on our list, and that was like actually the first scheduled appointment that we had. So it was so funny. I was like, well, isn't that weird?
But that's so exciting to see. So what was Dublin like for, was it like a
That was
city
awesome.
city?
I think that it's, what do you think? I mean, it's a great city.
I loved it. He loved it. He was like, "It's so modern." The first day we're walking down the river, and he's just, "Wow, it's so pretty." And I'm like, I really enjoyed it. We never got to see it the other times we had been to
Okay.
Ireland. So we actually, got to walk down most of the city center, like along the river, and we saw one of the parks, and we saw Dublin Castle, and we went to the Jameson Distillery, and we got to see the Christ Cathedral and St. Patrick's Cathedral, which were both stunning. One of the best cathedrals and churches I've ever been to. And we've been, I mean, for every castle, we're pushing 500 castles now. For every castle we've seen probably, at least two churches, and they were
Mhm.
amazing. But I think it was a real fun city. There's that one street. What was the street with the
Leaf Street.
yeah, Leaf Street with all the bars. It's kind of like they're like downtown where everyone goes, where all these cool pubs, and there's these different sections. There's one section where they have the big spire and that window to the where they have that camera and the portal, so you can see at different parts of the world, and you can like wave to people and things. So they have that there. It was kind of neat, but it was this giant pedestrian street, so they have these different sections that like feel uniquely like its own little section, like the castle and the college is here, and then there's this stuff over here, and you could just break the city up into like so many little sections. And moving back to the Epic, or excuse me, the museums and interactive you're talking about. So we
Mhm.
went to the Epic Irish Museum, and it it was all about the history, and it talked about anything from what bad things that happened to the Irish to famous Irish people and famous Irish inventions and whatever and everything. It goes through a lot of all their
Immigration.
history.
It's focused on the
Yeah,
immigration. Yes.
immigration. Yeah,
Oh,
it was a lot
wow.
of immigration and the internet. Man, one of the best museums I've ever been to. I've always been go to ones and I'm like, oh, that was cool. It was I had a couple interactive. You go to this castle and museum. It's like, oh, it's got a thing, it tells a story, and there's some are pretty awesome, some are like okay. And this one was amazing. I mean, the different interactive stuff. I mean, there was one part where you could dress
Powerful.
up
It's powerful.
and do like mug shots, and then there's ones where just I mean all the stories, and then they have this passport thing, so you get a passport at the beginning, and each section you go to after learning about things you can find it and slide it in there and stamp it, and then you get like you have all get it all, so you have like a full stamped passport thing. And it was really interactive and really awesome.
He loved it. I
Yeah,
mean,
he loved it. I mean, I was adult, adult and child. We all of us loved it. So
all
that was
loved it.
pretty awesome.
We actually, when we were on Fleet Street, we actually stopped in one of the pubs and they had live music playing. And he loved that too, because it was so Irish. You know what I mean? You were just right in the heart of what they're so culturally engaged in. And it was just live, music that was so much fun to listen to. And the one thing that Ryan hasn't mentioned yet that we were surprised how much he loved, but we did. We never had the chance to do the Book of Kells when we were there at Trinity College 11 years ago. So we made sure we got tickets this time. And oh my goodness, that was absolutely an amazing experience. And I mean, I think we w're both surprised
That was
how
beautiful.
much
Yeah.
he enjoyed it too. There's something about how they present it and then to actually see the Book of Kells and the
Yeah.
artwork. We actually
There's
bought
a
books. At the end, we bought books. Even he wanted a book so we could see in books how what it's the actual close-up images of the paintings and the stuff we did.
Yeah, I've done a whole podcast on the ancient art of Celtic art, and it goes to Ireland. And that book, I mean, it's amazing because they use gold leaf and everything.
It's beautiful. And there's this one interactive room where it had like walls that like look kind of like the shelves of like the long room library and everything. So it was
The
kind of
long room.
shaped like that. And then there's all these projectors on everything. So you sit in this one show where it's like an interactive and talks about like how the library was built and made and all this stuff. And like so like the books are like being stacked by themselves and like it's like coming
Wow.
alive. It was
Disneyland.
beautiful.
museum.
I was like, wow, this is mesmerizing. This is super awesome. And it is only like a, like maybe like a 6 minute whatever show. And I was like, man, they should make that like an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, it was awesome. So yeah, there was some really cool and unique things. And there was, there were statues they had that looked like they were talking because they have like projectors on these busts of different famous people and
Cool.
whatever. And it looks like Hogwarts type thing because it looks like they're talking, but they're not, and there's a lot of cool things. So I enjoyed that one too.
I think we can note, which we were surprised because we're talking June here. We just got back. There weren't many crowds. We had pre-purchased all our tickets for everything, and I would say that would have not been needed anywhere. There were
Yeah.
virtually no lines. It was never crowded.
We were told pre-book this, pre-book that, for the time or a day or depending on what the thing you had to do. Yeah, there was very little crowds and it was great weather too. So
So June is a good time. I want to ask you both because when you do that, you're pre-booking, do you use an app to keep track of your tickets and things like that? Or do you just keep track of it yourself to know, oh, we got a ticket, this is where it is, this is how we
yeah,
came
we'll
in?
print it. Yeah, we'll screenshot it usually, especially if we're we have to do it because some of the ones we were there we couldn't do it until like 7 days out. And we're like, oh well, that's near the end of the vacation, so we have to book it 3 days into our vacation. And then we're like, okay, and then we book it,
Yeah.
and then we just screenshot it, and then we just write we'll write like on our calendar because we know like we knew where we're going to see these things, but we already have like our printed out itinerary that we make like okay we want to see this and this and this, but then we'll just have to write in there like hey like at 9 o'clock in the morning or whatever this is our first stop and then this is our next stop, and a lot of them we were able to pre-book ahead of time enough to where when we did our itinerary and printed it out, we had that in order days and times.
Okay, so who gets each other? Like, does anybody sleep through an alarm between the two of you? Like,
No.
who's the
No,
early person? All right, I had a
me.
feeling
It,
about
it was me because I take longer in the shower. His son would be the one that would always sleep the longest. We always had
Yeah.
to
We just
drag him out of bed in the morning.
that. Yeah,
But he
yeah.
was surprised. He'd wake up and just be like, with a smile on his face. He's like, oh, I'm tired. We're like, oh, it's done. But then at like
Sleep on the
minute or
plane
so,
home.
yeah, he'd wake up and then he'd be fine all day. And
Yeah.
he'd be ready to go and do stuff.
Always smile on his face. I think
Fantastic.
that's
Yeah.
what.
Oh,
Never a point where it was like, you do things like we went swimming at the pool at the River Lee Hotel
Yeah.
in Cork. We also did that in Limerick as well. At the hotel, we stayed at the Hilton Garden Inn, which was a really nice one in Dublin. That one as well. And keep them engaged in things that we walked around because there was a big giant.
so you're giving a
wooden,
balance. Yeah.
curiosity.
Uh,
It always notice that if and read the room, the whole room, just assess, do you feel that you need to change the direction or change? And actually I've never really, in this whole trip, I was thinking we'd be doing that a lot more. We really didn't need to because he was so engaged. He would draw us to things. Oh, look at that over there, let's go look at that. And
Mm,
even flowers, he loved the flowers. He thought the flowers, Ireland is full of beautiful colored flowers
mm.
everywhere, and so that
Oh,
alone made it so beautiful, and he appreciates that stuff. So it would be like, look at
that's
that. And those little things made, and of course getting an ice cream in the afternoon was always fun, but surprisingly that wasn't something that he asked for much. It was more like if we didn't have a good lunch, he'd want something, and that's normal. Of course he is. It was just that it was really surprisingly wonderful. Now post trip, the key is to keep talking about it, share those stories, look at pictures, because it's you want to feed that memory, and Ryan has some ideas of what he's going to do to
mm,
you know portray this to him so it's something he could keep looking at and seeing. But it was remarkable. You know what is remarkable, period. I mean, as grown-ups it would have been fine with or without a kid. The kid actually truly enhanced the experience, and I think had to see things through different eyes in
mm.
that we can't measure the value of that.
Yeah, I agree. When we started our tour, and remember we were talking about the Presidio a couple months ago when you went to the Presidio, Joelle.
Yes.
I know both of you did. Yeah. When we started our tour, it was, well, actually the second year in, we went to the Presidio, and the same time we went to Santa Rosa and all that. And a really good friend, and Nancy and I and him went on a hike. And I think they changed the name of the park. Año Nuevo. No, it's not Año Nuevo. It is, anyway, there's a park in Santa Rosa, California. And he took his little daughter, it was pretty new. She was maybe 4, Nancy, do you think? Yeah, 3 or 4. And I'm like, you're going to bring your daughter on a hike? He's like, I'm teaching her to be outdoors, And it was funny because he kept going to Nancy for advice on like, she needs to go to the bathroom. I don't know what to do in the woods. And Nancy's looking at him like, you better start growing up on this stuff. And it was funny because he kept turning to Nancy. But she came up to me and I've never had kids. I don't know. And she grabs my hand and starts walking and she goes, these are fairy houses, all these little flowers. There's certain flowers. And she made me stop and look. And here I'm trying to photograph things and do things for the tour at the parks. And she made me stop and look inside the flowers to see if they were good enough for fairies. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever because I think fairy things are cool. And I'm not doing that in a girly way at all. It's just kind of I've read books and interviewed specialists on fairies, and it's kind of crazy. But the legends, and I mean, it's like, why not believe something fun, right? Even if you don't 100%, it's just magic. And she just was so into this. And so and then we did another hike. We went to Point Reyes National Seashore, and he had never been there, but he knows that area at the back of his hand. And we went out there, and it was the same kind of thing. And it was just this and you had to get down. You couldn't look as an adult. You had to get down to the child's level. And it was like this whole other experience for me. Just like I said, walking dogs is different. And I'm not putting kids and dogs in the same thing, but I love them both. It was this really cool, and it was slowed down like you're saying, Ryan. It is very slowed down. And then I was like, oh, that's cool. I don't have to huff and puff. I can chill out. I can, and then we all went for lunch. I remember we had, a little picnic that we went and it was in Point Reyes, and these vultures were overhead and they were bringing out our sandwiches. We're like, oh my God, we're going to have to save the kid because the vultures started. We're like, we're in trouble. We got to hide her because she's a little girl, man. She's so cute. And now she's a teenager. I don't know how that happens. Wait for it, Ryan. It's coming. It's coming.
No.
Well, it sounds like you both had an amazing time, and so did your son. And everyone, you've got to keep up with Ryan and Joelle on their blog. You go to wandererscompass.com, and they're here every second Monday on bigblendradio.com, and they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, all the social media sites, and on Wednesday, like you're talking about Warrior Wednesdays, every Wednesday. Is it every Wednesday, Joelle, that you do? Every Wednesday.
It's been over a year and a half now. Yes, every Wednesday.
Wow. You do Warrior Wednesdays on social media, doing military sites around the world. And again, castles. So you're getting close to 500 castles.
Yep.
How close are you, do you think?
About 460 right now after this trip.
Oh, well, you need another trip.
Oh, yes. We're in the process of picking that out right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. It's been fun hearing about your adventures in Ireland. I want to go. Everyone take care. Happy travels, and start planning your trip to Ireland, and don't let a fairy pinch you on the butt because some of them do. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here on Big Blend Radio's Wanderer's Compass travel podcast. New episodes air every second Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can follow the show at bigblendradio.com and keep up with Joelle and Ryan's adventures at wandererscompass.com.